So what happens when a province's bank accounts are just, completely overflowing? The municipal workers are practically whistling while they work, but the actual political soul of the government is just quietly bleeding out on the floor?
I mean, it's a complete mess, really.
It is. Grab your coffee, you guys, because today we are rolling up our sleeves and doing a deep dive into the geomantic weather for millions of people. We're looking at a manually cast, mundane geomancy chart for the Canadian province of Quebec.
Specifically for the week commencing July 6, 2026.
Right. Cast on July 3rd. And think of this as taking the province's energetic blood pressure, because the diagnosis here is it's just a violent paradox.
Yeah, violent is definitely the word for it.
Right, because the money is completely locked in, but the leadership is structurally broken. It's this massive contradiction that almost defies basic political logic.
It really does, because, completely upends that traditional assumption we all have, right?
Yeah.
That economic prosperity automatically guarantees political stability.
Which it usually does.
Exactly. Usually, when you evaluate a geopolitical entity, and in this case, Quebec is our querent, the subject of the reading, you look for cascading effects.
Right, like wealth propping up a weak premier or something.
Exactly. A wealthy treasury usually acts as a buffer for a struggling executive branch. But the shield we generated for this week shows this impenetrable firewall between the money and the leadership.
The state is thriving, but the statesmen are drowning.
That's exactly it.
And I know you guys listening are already familiar with the mechanics of mundane forecasting, so, we aren't looking at a chart for an individual's personal career or their, private checking account.
No, this is macro level.
Yeah, we are reading for millions of people simultaneously. We've mapped the 16 classical geomantic figures over the mundane astrological houses.
And we also applied the Gerard of Sabbioneta Astro-Geomantic overlay, which is crucial here.
Oh, absolutely crucial. That's going to show us which planets are actually pulling the levers behind the scenes later on. But before we get into the houses, if you had to give the elevator pitch for this chart, like just a few words summarizing the immediate standout impression, what is it?
It's got to be the manual casting process itself that sets the tone.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that.
Because when you cast manually, literally, just relying on the chaotic, odd-even generation of dots in the moment, you're setting the DNA of the whole chart. The four mothers dictate the entire mathematical cascade of the shield.
Right, it's all math from the first four figures.
Exactly. And to end up with a chart where the geomantic figures in the financial houses are these overwhelmingly solar, expansive energies, while the foundational and leadership houses get these brutally Saturnian restrictive figures.
It's not an accident.
No, it requires a very specific, highly polarized mathematical seed right from the root. It's not a mild chart, it's extreme.
Which perfectly brings us to the overarching storyline, what we're basically calling the Great Contradiction.
The Great Contradiction, yeah.
Let's look at the most glaring fracture first, the crisis of leadership and foundation. Because we're not going to just walk numerically from house 1 to 12. We need to follow the structural cracks.
Right, the most active axis.
Yeah. So let's jump straight to the vertical axis of the chart. House 4 and House 10, the foundational roots of the province versus the executive government.
And that 4th and 10th axis is really the anchor of any mundane chart.
The ground they stand on and the roof over their head.
Exactly. And in the 4th house, which is the land, the housing market, agriculture, and the domestic opposition, we find carcer.
Carcer. So prison or enclosure.
Right. And then you look up top at the 10th house of the executive government, the premier, the national reputation, and we have Tristitia.
Sorrow. Sadness.
Yeah, it's grim.
It's a double Saturn lockdown on the most public and foundational axis of the entire chart. I mean, let's dig into the elemental mechanics of this real quick. Both Carcer and Tristitia are earth figures.
Heavy, cold, and dry.
They are essentially energetic lead, right?
Totally. Because Saturn's function is to bind, to restrict, and to enforce these really harsh boundaries. So when you have Carcer in the 4th house, you are looking at literal gridlock in the physical foundation of the province.
So how does that manifest mundanely, like housing?
Yeah, earth figures in mundane land houses often manifest as housing crises that simply cannot be legislated out of, or agricultural stagnation.
Right.
Or a domestic opposition party that is just completely entrenched and immovable.
Right. Carcer binds things in place. It's a trap.
Exactly. The structures have become traps.
And then you look up to the 10th house, the leadership, and you see Tristitia. And I think it's important to note, it's not an angry figure like Rubius, It's not chaotic.
No, it's just heavy.
Yeah, it's a descending Earth figure. It suggests the premier's office isn't necessarily facing a fiery scandal, but rather this crushing, depressive weight.
They're visibly grieving.
Or just buckling under the sheer bureaucratic density of the province's problems, yeah. They are completely paralyzed by the cursor in the foundation.
And think about the geometry of Tristitia for a second. It's wide at the bottom and narrow at the top.
Right, like a stake driven into the ground.
Yeah. It's structurally sound, but it pulls all the energy downward, deep into the earth. The executive branch has zero upward mobility right now. No visionary momentum.
They are just managing decline.
Or at least that's the public perception. The Saturnian resonance between the 4th and 10th houses means the government and the land are locked in a mutual freeze. Neither one can initiate movement.
It's wild. But here is where the chart completely flips the script on us. Because while the political houses are essentially playing a funeral dirge, the financial houses are throwing an absolute rager.
It's so jarring.
Let's pivot to the 2nd and 8th axes, the province's treasury and its debt management.
Because this is the counterweight that keeps Quebec from just collapsing this week.
Thank God for the money houses, right?
Honestly, yeah. In the 2nd house, the treasury, we have Fortuna Major. Greater fortune.
Which is huge.
It's massive. It's a highly stable, deeply rooted, sun-ruled figure. It is the ultimate indicator of robust, consolidated wealth.
So the revenue streams aren't just surviving, they are shining.
Rock solid. Tax collection, provincial investments, banking sectors, all of it is in fantastic shape.
Okay, so that's the treasury. What about the 8th house? The sector of shared resources, crisis management, institutional debt.
There we find acquisitio, gain.
A Jupiter-ruled figure of expansion and absorption.
Right. And in a debt house, this usually indicates the province is successfully acquiring really favorable debt terms. Or maybe they're absorbing federal funding or external resources to resolve internal crises.
The financial flows are incredibly favorable.
Extremely. Revenue is consolidating, and debt is being managed with expansive success.
So to put this in like geopolitical terms, the economic engine of Quebec is running entirely on its own institutional momentum.
It's completely decoupled from the emotional and political state of the leadership.
It's crazy. You have a government paralyzed by sadness at their desks, while the provincial accountants are just securing massive, stabilizing gains.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of those historical periods. It's like looking at a billionaire who is having a profound existential crisis locked in their mansion. The bank accounts are full, but the soul is leaking.
That's a perfect analogy. The structure holds, even if the driver is asleep at the wheel.
Or crying at the wheel in the case of Justicia.
Right, crying at the wheel. And that decoupling is so vital to understand. Because when we look at the 1st house, the identity of Quebec itself, the collective self-image of the province, we actually see where that political exhaustion is originating.
Okay, let's look at the 1st house.
It holds Cauda Draconis, the dragon's tail.
Oof. A descending, exiting, purging energy.
Yeah.
It's a fiery figure, but it's like, it's the fire of a localized exhaust pipe. It's not building anything. It's just burning off waste.
Exactly. In mundane terms, Cauda Draconis in the 1st house indicates a profound corrosion of the province's public character or vitality.
Something is leaking away.
At the very core of how Quebec views itself, it's this collective exhaustion, a shedding of an old identity that just isn't serving the populace anymore.
And because it's in the 1st house, this isn't something being done to them by an external force. Right?
Yeah, this is an internal bleed. It's entirely self-generated.
Wow. Let's test that theory by looking across the table at the 7th house then. The house of open opponents, counterparties, rivals.
Federal government, trade partners, that sort of thing.
Right. The 7th house holds Fortuna Minor, lesser fortune.
Now, Fortuna Minor is a sun-ruled figure, just like its older sibling, Fortuna Major, over in the treasury. But its geometry is inverted.
It's top-heavy.
Very top-heavy. It relies entirely on external transient momentum. It flares up and burns out really quickly. It represents fleeting luck, a temporary upper hand.
Passing advantage. So wait, if the opponent only has Fortuna Minor, this unstable top-heavy luck, does that mean Quebec's real enemy this week is just its own internal drain?
Basically, yeah.
Like, the counterparties aren't actually strong enough to cause structural damage. The real threat is entirely the internal drain of the dragon's tail.
I'd argue it's even more restrictive than that. The opponent isn't actively winning. Quebec is simply dropping the ball.
Oh, wow. So Quebec is self-sabotaging, undergoing this uncomfortable internal purge, and the opponent is just getting a lucky bounce off Quebec's exhaustion.
Exactly. The energy Quebec is bringing into the week is characterized entirely by that first house strain. And we see this theme of internal mismatch echoed all over the operational sectors of the province.
Right, let's walk through those. The communication and labor axis, houses 3 and 9 and houses 6 and 12.
So the third, House of Local Media, Transit, Municipal Communications, Schools, holds Letitia.
Joy, a Jupiter-ruled figure. Expansive, upward-moving, inherently optimistic.
Yeah, so local messaging is upbeat. Maybe there's a successful municipal transit launch or positive civil service announcements. Everything feels pretty good on the ground.
But then you look across to the ninth house, higher courts, constitutional law, universities. And there you find pure.
The boy or the warrior?
Pure, unrefined Mars energy.
Rash, combative, impulsive fire.
So while the local municipal media is broadcasting joy and smooth operations, the higher institutional courts or the ideological sectors are just engaged in reckless, aggressive battles.
It's completely disjointed.
Yeah.
You have local harmony overshadowed by ideological warfare in the higher courts.
And we see an almost identical dissonance on the health and labor axis.
Yeah, the sixth house, which is public health workers, the civil service, daily labor, also holds Letitia.
Wow. So the visible public-facing service workers have really high morale.
Labor relations on the ground level are joyful, they're expansive, but the 12th house...
The hidden sphere.
The 12th house is the realm of hidden pressures. Chronic wards and hospitals, prisons, covert operations, bureaucratic scandals.
And what's there?
We find Carcer again.
The same figure of prison and lockdown that's choking the housing market in the 4th house.
Exactly. So the visible nurses and local civil servants are doing great, but the deep, hidden institutional structures, the chronic care facilities, the penal systems, the behind-the-scenes pipelines are completely frozen.
They are boxed in.
It creates this fascinating sociological split. Think about it. You walk down the street in Quebec this week. The local transit works, right? Letitia in the 3rd.
The local clinics are friendly. Letitia in the 6th.
The banks are secure. Fortuna Major in the 2nd.
But if you try to actually interact with the executive government, you hit Tresucia. You try to buy a house, you hit Carcer.
Or navigate the higher legal or penal systems, you get Pierre and Carcer.
You just hit a wall of depression, aggression, and systemic lockdown.
It's a snapshot of a highly functional society being managed by a completely dysfunctional superstructure.
That is such a vivid picture. But you know, a chart is only a static snapshot of Monday morning. To see how this week actually metabolizes all these conflicting energies, we have to calculate the chart's engine.
The terminal figures.
The terminal figures, yes. The mathematical distillation of the entire shield.
Right, because the terminal sequence is generated by adding the points of the various figures together to produce a narrative arc.
We get the right witness, the left witness, the judge, and the reconciler.
It shows us the timeline. We start with the right witness, which represents the energy Quebec carries into the very beginning of the week.
And the calculation gives us Fortuna Minor.
Fading momentum.
Fading momentum. We saw this in the opponent's house, too.
Yeah, as the foundational energy of the week, it means Quebec is just coasting on fumes. Whatever luck or momentum they had over the weekend is highly unstable.
It's top-heavy, ready to tip over.
Which leads directly into the unfolding of the week, the left witness. The mathematical combination here produces a missio.
Loss. Going away.
It's a Venus-ruled figure, consisting of 2 outer fire and water lines and 2 inner earth and air lines. It literally visually represents things falling out of a container.
Right, the V-shape opening downwards.
Yeah. So as the week develops, the province passes through a definitive release. Things slip away. It could be a loss of political capital for the grieving premier or a release of collective assets.
Wait, let me challenge the traditional doom and gloom reading of a missio here for a second. Yes, it means loss, but as you mentioned, it's Venus-ruled.
It is.
It's often a sweet loss, a relaxing of tension. Furthermore, the classical texts explicitly state that a missio is only beneficial when applied to things one wishes to lose.
That's a really good point.
Given that we started with Cata Draconis violently purging the province's identity in the 1st house, I don't see this left witness as a tragedy at all.
How do you see it?
I see it as a mandatory, perhaps even relieving bureaucratic purge, the loss of outdated policies, the shedding of dead weight. Is it possible this loss is actually a necessary purging of old baggage to finally reach that neutral conjunctio?
I think that tracks perfectly with the elemental flow of the chart. A purging is structurally required.
Yeah, the pressure has to go somewhere.
The old collective self-image that is exhausting the province must be let go. Amicio in the unfolding position confirms that this loss is unavoidable this week. The province cannot hold on to its current political configuration.
It has to drop it.
The only variable is whether the executive branch surrenders it consciously, making it a Venusian relief, or if they fight it, making it feel like a forced hemorrhage. But the loss must happen to reach the verdict.
And the verdict is the judge, mathematically derived from combining the two witnesses. So fading luck, Fortuna minor, plus necessary loss, Amicio, yields.
Conjunctio. Conjunction.
Together?
Conjunctio is Mercury-ruled, and it is the most fundamentally neutral figure in geomancy.
It's just a meeting.
It represents a gathering, an intersection of paths. There is no clear gain and no clear loss in the judge itself. It simply means that after the unstable luck fails and after the necessary purge occurs, the week culminates in a stabilizing meeting.
Okay, so like a coalition is formed, or maybe an emergency parliamentary session is held.
Or a new agreement is drafted that stops the bleeding from the Amicio phase. It's a pragmatic, unromantic coming together of parties.
It's the meeting where everyone sits down at the table and just says, okay, we lost what we had to lose, now what?
Exactly.
And the answer to now what is found in the Reconciler, the final settlement calculated by combining the judge with the first mother of the chart. And remarkably, the math yields Letitia.
Joy.
Joy. It's an incredible arc.
It really is. After all the Saturnian grief in the government, after the internal identity bleed, and after the necessary loss, the ultimate concrete manifestation at the end of the week is emotional uplift.
A surprising recovery.
A restoration of hope.
So if you are advising the Premier of Quebec, you tell them this is a threshold week. You cannot skip the loss and go straight to the joy.
No, you have to go through it.
You have to endure the Amicio phase, let the dead wood burn off, hold the neutral conjunctio meeting, and only then will the Letitia relief manifest.
It requires incredible political discipline not to panic during the loss phase.
Which they probably will, given Tristitia in the 10th house.
Unfortunately, yes. But the question remains, what is the deep underlying catalyst for this necessary purge?
Right. What's driving it?
To find that, we have to look past the visible houses and calculate the Arabic parts.
These are the mathematical points derived from the degrees of the ascendant, the sun, and the moon.
They show us the invisible gravity wells in the chart.
Okay, so we calculated the two most critical parts for a mundane chart. The part of spirit, which represents the deeper intention, the animating soul purpose of the province.
And the part of fortune, which represents material rescue, tangible benefit, and where the literal luck or help is located.
And the results here are, they're a statistical anomaly that frankly blew my mind.
It's super rare. Both the part of spirit and the part of fortune fall exactly, by degree, into House 12.
House 12, the house we just established, is occupied by Carcer, the Saturnian prison.
The implications of this are staggering.
Let's unpack that.
The province's deepest animating impulse and its greatest source of practical material rescue are both trapped in the exact same hidden institutional sphere.
The help is available, but it is concealed within the most restrictive, bureaucratic, covert channels of the government. I was trying to think of an analogy for this. And it's not like having a winning lottery ticket locked in a bank vault. It's more insidious than that.
How so?
It's like having the winning lottery ticket and the blueprint to solve the province's entire housing crisis, but they have both been classified as state secrets and buried in a redacted bureaucratic dossier in the basement of a chronic care facility.
Oh, that's good.
Right. And no one in the current administration has the security clearance or the political courage to declassify it and open the file.
That is the exact mechanism of the 12th House Carcer. It is a bureaucratic trap of its own making.
Oh.
The relief is there. The spiritual renewal is there. But it requires the government to venture into its own locked shadow.
They have to go into the dark.
They have to open up the prisons, audit the chronic wards, or expose the covert political pressures that they normally keep strictly hidden from the public. If Carcer refuses to release those secrets, the province's material rescue point never activates.
So the million-dollar question, can they pick the lock? Is there any dynamic planetary energy in the sky this week capable of breaking that Carcer stagnation in the 12th house?
Well, to answer that, we applied the Gerard of Sabbioneta Astro-Geomantic overlay.
Right, our secondary layer of analysis.
We take the geomantic figures, map them to their corresponding zodiac signs, and then audit the essential dignities of the 7 traditional planets. We want to see who has the leverage.
And the Gerard overlay delivers the most sobering revelation of the entire analysis, honestly.
It does. In this entire chart, using the traditional planetary bounds and domiciles, there is not a single planet in domicile. There's not a single planet in exaltation.
A week entirely without champions.
Exactly. Every acting planetary force in this chart is either severely debilitated by detriment or fall, or they are entirely peregrine.
Meaning they are wandering through foreign territory with no essential power, no resources, and no inherent dignity.
They're just guests who can't change the rules of the house.
Let's break down the mechanics of this, because it explains why the government is paralyzed. Let's go back to House 4, the foundation and the housing market, where we saw the Carcer prison.
The Gerard overlay maps the sign of Cancer to this house.
And we have a massive planetary pileup here.
Yeah, the Sun, Saturn, and Mars all fall into Cancer in the 4th house.
Okay, let's grade them. Start with the Sun.
The Sun in Cancer is peregrine. Cancer is the Moon's watery domicile. The Sun, a hot, dry, authoritative luminary, is floating in an emotional cardinal water sign with no dignity.
It's like a king visiting a foreign country where he doesn't speak the language and forgot his checkbook.
That's exactly it. He has presence, but he has no structural authority. He can't command the tides.
But the Sun is just ineffective. Saturn and Mars are actively destructive here.
Right. Saturn in Cancer is in its detriment. Let's look at the causality here. Saturn is the planet of cold, dry, rigid structures. It rules Capricorn, which is all about building lasting, unyielding boundaries.
And Cancer is the complete opposite.
Cancer is wet, mutable, emotional, and boundary dissolving. When you put the planet of structure into the sign of dissolving waters, Saturn's ability to build or maintain foundations is profoundly compromised.
It becomes fearful.
Fearful, defensive, and restrictive in all the wrong ways. The structural authority regarding land and housing is literally drowning.
Oh, wow, so it's drowning. And then you add Mars into the mix.
Mars in Cancer is in its fall. This is maximum debility. Mars needs heat and friction to sever, to act decisively, to enforce executive will.
But in Cancer?
In Cancer, the fire of Mars is smothered by the water. Its aggression misfires. Instead of decisive action, you get passive aggression, emotional outbursts, and botched execution.
So in the House of the Province's physical foundation, you have a king with no power, the peregrine Sun, an architect whose blueprints are dissolving in water Saturn in detriment, and a general who is drowning in his own armor, Mars in fall.
And all of this is happening inside a Carcer lockdown.
It is a masterpiece of geopolitical paralysis. I mean, any attempt by the premier to force a solution on the housing or land front this week will misfire catastrophically because the planetary tools are fundamentally broken.
They just don't have the hardware to fix it.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to our locked dossier in the 12th house, the sphere of hidden institutions where the part of fortune and part of spirit are trapped.
Right. Who's in charge there?
The overlay maps Pisces to this 12th house. Who is swimming in these waters?
The Moon and Mercury.
The Moon in Pisces is peregrine. It's comfortable enough in a water sign, but it has no real power to force a lock. But Mercury. Mercury in Pisces is a diagnostic disaster.
Walk us through the mechanism of why Mercury fails so spectacularly here, because people might not realize how bad that placement is.
All right, so Mercury is the planet of categorization, data, commerce, boundaries, and rational articulation. It functions best in Virgo and Gemini, where it can label things and put them in neat boxes.
But Pisces is
the boundless, dissolving, infinite ocean. It is the sign of ultimate synthesis and emotional overwhelm. It is both Mercury's detriment and its fall.
So when you drop the planet of clear data into an infinite ocean,
institutional communication completely dissolves into fog.
So the covert channels, the bureaucratic records, the institutional data within the 12th house, it's all completely unreliable. It's confused, redacted, or actively deceptive.
Take that a step further. If the government actually realizes that their rescued part of fortune is locked in that 12th house, they will try to send Mercury to go negotiate its release.
Right. They'll send auditors, communicators, or data analysts to parse the bureaucratic mess.
And because Mercury is in its detriment and fall, those auditors will just get lost in the fog. Getting clear information or negotiating the release of those hidden resources is going to be incredibly messy and prone to severe misunderstanding.
It paints a really incredibly bleak picture of the executive's capability this week. But I want to push back on one piece of the Gerard overlay because there is this explosive contradiction in the first house that we haven't reconciled yet.
Okay, let's hear it.
So in the primary geomantic chart, the first house of identity holds Cauda Draconis, the purging, exiting, draining energy.
Yeah.
But when we apply the Gerard overlay, house 1 maps to the sign of Aries. And the specific figures generated for this Aries ascendant overlay are Acquisitio, gain, and Caput Draconis, the dragon's head, the north node, which represents ravenous incoming growth and new beginnings.
That's a huge contrast.
Right. Wait, how does an explosive, acquisitive growth energy in the Aries overlay square with the primary Cauda Draconis strain we saw in the first house? Are they just fighting each other to a standstill?
Well, they aren't fighting in a vacuum. They are operating in a sequence. You have to respect the hierarchy of interpretation.
Okay, so the primary chart comes first.
Right. The primary chart figure, the Cauda Draconis drain, is the fundamental physical reality of the week. The purge is happening, the identity is leaking. But the overlay, the north node, and Acquisitio in fiery Aries, reveals the why. It reveals the incoming pressure that is forcing the purge.
Ah, so the drain isn't happening because the province is dying, it's happening because something massive is trying to get in.
Precisely. A powerful, fiery surge of growth and new identity is trying to take root at the foundational level of the province.
Yeah.
But you cannot fill a cup that is already full of stagnant water.
The old bureaucratic identity is blocking the door.
Exactly. The primary figure dictates that the cup must be emptied first. The draining energy of the dragon's tail must run its course, making space for this powerful Aries surge to eventually take over.
Which loops perfectly back to our terminal arc. The emissio loss in the unfolding of the week isn't a failure. It is the literal mechanism making space for the Aries growth to enter, leading eventually to that Letitia joy.
The architecture of the chart is remarkably cohesive when you synthesize all the layers. It all points to a massive, necessary transition.
Okay, we have the pieces, we have the primary figures, the terminal arcs, the trapped Arabic parts, and the debilitated planetary overlay. Let's just weave this into a single, cohesive forecast for you all listening.
A final verdict.
Yeah. If we have to deliver the definitive summary for Quebec for the week of July 6, 2026, what is the bottom line?
The definitive summary is this. Quebec's government leadership grieves atop a remarkably sound treasury, while the province is locked. Hidden shadow holds both its peril and its salvation.
Let's break down the tangible takeaways for a second. First, what must be sacrificed this week?
The old collective self-image. Whatever narrative, policy, or public identity has been exhausting the province must be let go. That is, the Cauda Draconis strain and the unavoidable emissio loss.
The executive branch cannot hold on to its current posture.
They really can't.
And what is secured? Like, where is the safe ground?
Material and institutional finances are secured. The double fortuna major in the chart anchoring both the Treasury and the legislative alliances means the money is safe, the revenue streams are robust, and the voting blocks or federal funding mechanisms are holding firm.
But the crucial warning here is the source of that strength. The Treasury is strong because of the geomantic figures, the raw elemental momentum. But because the Gerard overlay confirms a complete absence of planetary champions, no planets in domicile or exaltation, this strength is entirely automated.
That is the real danger. The political structure is holding itself together by sheer luck, institutional momentum, and tax brackets. It is not being held together by capable, visionary leadership.
Because the leadership is depressed with Tristitia and paralyzed by Carcer.
Exactly. The tools of executive action are broken by planetary debility. The government has no wind in its sails to push through new initiatives. They cannot force a fix to the housing crisis. They cannot aggressively legislate their way out of the fog.
All they can do is ride out the threshold. They have to surrender to the emissio loss, convene the neutral conjunctio meetings, and trust that the structural wealth of the province will carry them through to the Letitia relief at the end of the week.
It requires a profound amount of restraint from a government that is likely, frankly, panicking. Doing nothing or allowing the purge to happen is often the hardest political choice.
Well, you heard the diagnosis. A week of violent contradiction, unavoidable purging, automated wealth, and hidden salvation for Quebec. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into mundane geomancy. We will absolutely be doing more of these explorations, breaking out the charts and reading the architectural energies that shape our geopolitical world.
It is always a fascinating exercise to see the math of a society laid bare like this.
But before we let you go, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on. Think back to that locked, redacted dossier in the 12th house, the one holding both the province's deepest intention and its greatest chance at material rescue. If both your deepest intention and your greatest chance at rescue are locked inside the very institutions you usually try to keep hidden in the dark, what happens if you finally decide to open the doors? Until next time, keep diving deep.